I was the only boy born into a girl's village after 20 years. When you're the first boy to be born into a village chock-block full of girls after 20 years, let me tell you, that's some burden to bear. All you guys out there are probably thinking it must be like winning the lottery, girls flocking to your feet everywhere. Yeah, it kinda was like that at first, but then things just got weird. Okay, so I live in a small village in East Europe, and the women have been giving birth to only girls for the past 20 years. We aren't really sure why, but my village believes that they got cursed from a witch that they kicked out a long time ago. But if you ask me, I think God is the one punishing us for kicking her out. On top of all that, people in my village are not allowed to marry people from the outside. So, the moment my parents realized I was a boy, they quickly wrapped me up in a blanket and kept my gender a secret. They told everyone I was a girl and that my name was Jackie, when in actual fact, I was a boy and my name was Jared. A little bit weird, right? But my parents had no other option. They knew that people would freak out if they found out I was a boy. No one in our village had given birth to a boy in more than 20 years, and my parents didn't want me to get so much attention. They just wanted me to live a normal life. Except it wasn't normal, and I only realized that now, thinking back. At the time, I was none the wiser. I happily played with dolls and wore frilly dresses and let everyone call me Jackie. I mean, I didn't even know I was called Jared. Well, that was until I was 5 years old. I was playing in our backyard when a woman appeared on the other side of the wall. She was dangling some candy in front of my face, and like a little puppy dog, I followed her. I kept looking back, expecting my parents to come running out to get me, but they were nowhere to be seen. The woman asked me to get into her car and told me that if I was a good boy, she'd give me more candy. I didn't even think twice. My parents never let me eat candy. But then, I realized she'd said good boy, and I turned to her and told her I was a girl. I'll never forget the way she threw her head back and let out a chuckle. She looked at me and said, "Sure, Pumpkin, and I'm the President of the United States." Oh, look, there's a flying pig. I fell for it and looked, and the next moment, she'd lifted up my dress and said, "See, you're a boy, you little freak." I didn't understand what she was talking about, and then she explained that I was a boy and that my parents had been lying to me. Then she said the village mayor was offering a reward to the first woman to give birth to a son, and seeing as my parents were keeping me a secret, she'd hand me over and collect the reward money herself. I was too young to fully understand, but I knew I was in serious trouble. I started screaming and thrashing my arms about, and this only made her drive faster. I have no idea why I did what I did next, but suddenly I jumped onto her knee. She couldn't see where she was going, and that's when we crashed. We could have died, but I didn't care. At that moment, all I wanted was to get away from that horrible woman. And it was my lucky day, because all that happened was her car got a bit crushed, but I escaped without even a scratch. I started running back towards our village, and she was chasing me, but I was too fast for her. My parents suddenly drove by, and my mom burst into tears. Well, there was nothing that woman could do. She was well and truly caught now. Turns out she'd escaped from a nearby psychiatric clinic, and they came and picked her up promptly. My parents had no other choice. They had to tell the mayor and everyone else that I was actually a boy and that my name was Jared. But I like being Jackie, I told them. That just made my mom cry more, and when she switched my dresses for shorts and t-shirts, I felt strange. I thought no one would want to be my friend anymore, but I couldn't have been more wrong. All of a sudden, every girl wanted to be my friend. I was the center of attention, and honestly, it was too much. I was just a kid. Suddenly, I had girls hanging off me, wanting to play with me all the time. How come I was more popular as a boy than a girl? Anyway, the older I got, the more intense it became. When I turned 12, the village mayor started a new tradition. From now on, every year on my birthday, I'd sit on a throne for the whole day, and all the women who wanted to conceive baby boys would come and bow at my feet, and one by one, they'd reach out and kiss my feet. It freaked me out so much. But the mayor told me he'd buy me a special gift if I did this one thing for the village. One time, though, it was taken too far. One woman wouldn't stop kissing my toes, and suddenly, I felt a sharp pain shooting through my body. She'd gotten so carried away, she'd actually bitten down. I was even bleeding. After that, I refused to do it the following year. It was just some stupid ritual that the village thought would bring them luck. And come on, it wasn't even working. I was still the only boy. When I turned 18, I decided the only way to handle all the attention was to just embrace it. There was one girl, Sammy, who was actually pretty cute, and after she basically begged and stalked me for weeks, I agreed to be her boyfriend. Of course, all the other girls were jealous, and I was worried I was about to start World War III. Looks like Sammy won. I actually felt like I was really falling for her, and one night she invited me over to her house. Her parents were out, so we started making out. She was really hot. She reassured me they'd only be home much later, but suddenly we heard the door. I leapt behind the sofa half-dressed, and then things went horribly wrong. Well, how did it go? Did he put a baby in you yet? Come on, Sammy, we aren't paying you all this money so you can sit around. Give us a grandson already. I couldn't believe it. She'd been using me. I stood up and gave her parents the biggest fight. Then I turned to Sammy and said, "Screw you. I hope it's a girl you have." Then I grabbed my clothes and walked out. I never wanted to see her again. But then later she fell off the stairs and had a miscarriage. To everyone's shock, Sammy was actually pregnant with a baby boy. After that, the whole village knew about it and made them go even crazier. Women lined up outside my house for the whole day. Some even tried to enter my home. Everyone wanted my number and my social media contact. They even put security to watch me. But then I was like, screw it. After the way Sammy used me, I decided to get revenge by dating as many girls as possible. Girls were basically falling at my feet, while guys around the world were doing the impossible to get girls' attention. So I dated a whole bunch of them at the same time, and they did everything for me. They got me food, gave me massages, and I got all kinds of gifts daily. I mean, we all know how much fun a guy like me can have with girls. They were just so hot and amazing. And the best part, I didn't have to work for it. But there was so much expectation. They all wanted sons. I wasn't ready to be a father. Babies were so not my thing. I tried to talk to my mom about it, but suddenly she started crying. I told her I wasn't interested in hearing about how much she wanted a grandson again. But then she took me by surprise. She told me she was sick, and that she didn't have much time left, and that she only wanted me to be happy. I felt so guilty. Was I being selfish? Why couldn't I just give my mom what she truly wanted, which was clearly a grandson? After our conversation, I asked Amy, who lived next door to us, if she wanted to be my girlfriend. I made her swear to keep it secret so that the other girls didn't get jealous. I felt like time was against us. Mom kept getting more sick, and Amy and I were having no luck getting pregnant. Then I thought, what if I had another girlfriend too? I don't know if it was the thought of losing my mom and not giving her what she wanted, or if I was actually going insane or something. But I asked Leanne, who lived at the end of the village, if she'd like to be my girlfriend too, and obviously she said yes. Please don't judge me for two-timing. I just felt desperate. And then shit hit the fan. Clearly the universe wasn't playing with me. On the same day, they both called me and told me they were pregnant. Amy was a strict Catholic and said her parents would kill her if we didn't get married. So I married her at home and we had a quiet little ceremony. But then Leanne told her dad she was pregnant and he threatened to beat my ass if I didn't marry his daughter. I knew I didn't have a choice, but was it even legal? 2 wives? But no one would need to know. This all happened in the same week. Suddenly I had 2 wives and 2 babies on the way. Leanne's dad gave me a job on his farm, so I spent the daytime with Leanne. Then every night I'd go home and stay with Amy. Can you believe I didn't get caught? My parents knew about Amy, but I just prayed they didn't find out about Leanne. Listen, I wasn't happy about it. In fact, I didn't feel anything for these girls, and I was sure it would get out at some point. And it did, because both of them gave birth to boys. I was there for Amy's and had to rush over to Leanne's to make her birth too. And the mayor held another stupid ceremony. Well, there was no way I could go. Everyone would find out. I packed a small bag and gave my mom a kiss goodbye, and then I took my dad's old bicycle and cycled out of the village as far as I could. I rented a small room at a cheap motel, but then every social media platform reported me missing. The whole village was looking for me. I tried to disguise myself as someone else, and I started working at a grocery store nearby. A long time passed and no one found me. I started having male friends my age, which was pretty cool. But to be completely honest, I also missed my family. I was scared of what they'd do if I went back to see them, so I never did. Until one day, after a whole year passed, I heard a knock on the door. It was the motel manager standing there with my 2 wives, and he said, "These women are looking for you." I wanted to run, but I saw that they were holding 2 adorable baby boys. My 2 wives told me, "We want you back. We don't care that you're married to both of us, but if it's too much for you, you can choose one." I hated how my life was like before, But after seeing my 2 boys, I couldn't stay here. My village needed me to have more children. Both of my wives were pretty cool, so I decided to stay married to them both. And eventually, I got a 3rd wife after a few years. And today, I became the proud father of 10 boys.
Hey there, I'm Maureen, and I want to tell you about the spooky experience I had last Christmas. Let me start by asking, do you believe in curses? I bet most of you don't. I never did. Well, I certainly didn't until we got a cursed painting hung on our wall. How did I discover that it was cursed? It's quite a frightening story, but I'll tell you. When my grandparents came and brought us a gift, a crazy-looking painting, it was huge. It had Santa and some reindeer in a big golden frame. The frame was painted wood with a very unique design to it, with all these swirls, just like you'd see at an art museum. When my father hung it over the dining table, I got a weird chill. I almost immediately knew something was wrong. When you look at it, you realize that Santa and his reindeer have blood-red eyes. Not black like on the first glance. And their eyes would follow you wherever you moved in the room, as if it was alive. Obviously, I thought I was imagining things, so I shrugged it off. Then, after Christmas, something very odd started to happen. Something that I would never expect in a million years. My mom got into an argument with my dad about money, and they shouted at each other for the first time ever. And it kept getting worse in the next few weeks. It wasn't only my parents, though. My sweet little brother would all of a sudden find ways to fight and blame me for anything that was wrong. From chores in the house to cleaning our room, it was just horrible. But it didn't stop there. Money became a major problem, and every time we asked for anything, my mom would literally yell at us that we don't have any money and we should never ask. I even heard her mumble once that my brother and I were like 2 little parasites sucking the life out of her. I couldn't believe it. It made me so sad to hear it that I cried myself to sleep. One night, my father was so furious that he slammed the table during dinner and looked at us so mad that my mom told us to go to our rooms right away. We heard them shouting for hours that day. The next day, I decided that I've had enough of this. Something was definitely wrong and I needed to know what it was. As I was thinking, I felt that awkward feeling I always used to get around that stupid painting our grandparents got us. When I looked up, I could see Santa's eyes gazing at me in the most frightening way. This painting has brought us all the bad luck in the world, and I hit that painting with my fist in anger. I hate you, I screamed. When suddenly, I heard a loud noise of glass being shattered. When I looked behind me, I saw the crystal candle holders that was just laying on the table on the floor, shattered into thousands of pieces. I froze in my place, unable to move. Oh God, something is seriously wrong with that painting. I hurried up to my room and started researching online. I found that some objects, like paintings, may have dark origins and that misguided spirits would sometimes embed themselves into them. They would cause misery to anyone around them, and I thought, that is exactly what is happening. My research led me to an old bookstore in town where they specialize in the supernatural. It was so weird, I had to take my friend Shelley with me, but right before we entered, she said she would wait for me outside. I thought about it. Can this all be possible? This must be some type of trick. But then I remembered that my dear father was actually about to hurt us last night. He would have never done anything like that ever. I went inside with a mission to find out how to remove this curse. The old lady at the store greeted me, and she said she knew I would come in today. That's odd, I thought, but I was focused. So I told her the story and she nodded. She asked me to wait and brought a dusty book from the back of the store. She said that my solution will be in there. I already thought this was too much, but then the price of the book was exactly all the money I saved over the past few years from allowances and babysitting. I was planning to buy myself a nice dress for the school dance, so I told her that it's too much and went outside. That night, When I came home, my parents were at it again, shouting at the top of their lungs, no longer hiding their arguments from us. This time, it wasn't just about money. My father was accusing my mom of cheating on him, out of the blue. It felt like they fought forever. I took my dinner plate and went to my room. I was so sad and so mad. But then I remembered the old lady from the store saying, "This is what you'll need to solve all your problems." She also mentioned that it would take great sacrifice. That night, I dreamt about the old lady and what she said over and over. A few days later, right after school, I told Shelly that I need her help and that I will owe her for life. I went to the store and entered it. I was ready to give the old lady all the money I saved. I just didn't care anymore. I read the book right away, and in the chapter about how to get rid of curses, it clearly said that I need to take the object, get it blessed with holy water, and then destroy it, preferably by burning. When I got home, we all sat down to dinner, and before we started arguing and fighting, I asked both of my parents if I could speak with them about something very important. They agreed, asking, "What's wrong, honey?" I told them that this family is wrong, that something is wrong with us ever since Christmas, and that since that painting is on our wall, we never stop arguing and being angry. They dismissed it as nonsense, but I insisted that before, we were happy. We were grateful for what we had. They told me that I'm imagining things and that there was no such thing as a curse, and that's how life is. Adults fight sometimes. It doesn't mean that we don't love you and your brother, and that maybe I was just not remembering things clearly, as we were always like this. The next day, I called Shelly and told her that we have a quest to save my family. I told her the plan, and she agreed to help me. She said it was exciting and that it's the only way. We went to the local church. Shelly distracted the attending priest with some questions, and I took a little water from the baptismal font's basin. I curtsied and went outside to wait for Shelly, and she came a few minutes later. We told my mom we were going to study in my room and that later we're going to a campfire with our friends. She waved at us and continued working in the kitchen. That night, Shelly and I went to the dining room, moved the table, brought the ladder, and took off the painting, all very quietly. We snuck it outside and carried it to the campsite near our home. There was a fire pit dug for campfires, so it was perfect. We brought a few dead tree branches and created a fire teepee around the painting. Then, we followed the instructions in the book. We first sprayed the holy water, then uttered the ritual words, asking the spirits trapped in the painting to let go, freeing them to move on to the next world. It was scary and exciting. The fire started and a weird rainbow of colors came out of the painting, but quickly after, they subdued, and the fire burned the canvas and frame until there was nothing left. I swear I saw something screaming. I snuck back home through the back door that I left unlocked using a key. I threw all my clothes in the washing machine as I agreed with my mom before we left the campfire. Took a quick shower and went to bed. The next day, I woke up to noises from the living room. It was weird, as usually during the weekend, everyone sleeps in, takes their time. But today, I heard talking and furniture moving. My parents were not in their rooms when I checked, and I saw my brother in the hallway just waking up, also confused from all the noise. When we went to the living room, my parents told us we were wrong. They were shocked. They were looking in all the drawers and moving around the house like crazy people. I asked if something was wrong, and they said that we were robbed and the robbers came only for our precious Santa painting, and that nothing else was missing. They said that they would need to call the police and report this. My brother started crying. My friends had told of us and said it's going to be okay and that we shouldn't worry. My mouth was dry. I got really scared, but decided not to say anything. The police came, and the sergeant said that there was a wave of art thefts in the area, and that there's not much to go on. The gang is very professional, and they leave no trace behind. They wrote the report and gave the slip to my dad, then said not to get our hopes up, and that they would let us know if there was any development in the case. I was finally able to breathe again. My mother was weeping, not knowing what to do. We all hugged for the longest time. My parents kept saying that at least no one was hurt over and over again. In the next few weeks, my entire family slowly got back to normal. We were talking and happy. My mother prepared us sandwiches again and kissed my dad goodbye again. They stopped arguing and shouting. At our family dinners, we returned to share funny stories of the day. We laughed and were so very happy. I went back to the old lady from the shop and returned the book. I thanked her and she gave me some of the money back for the book. She said, "Now you can buy your dress." I wondered how she knew, even though I never told her about it, but I didn't think too much about it because I was so very happy. I don't know if it was really a curse or just a coincidence, but I was more than glad it's over. Did you ever have a supernatural encounter or a curse?